Okay. Hello, people of YouTube land and those that um, follow us on Twitch and are part of the Cringe Crew Gaming Community Discord. You all are watching this on Thursday, so that means it is another episode of the Cringe Crew Gaming James Bond Review Podcast. I am Traductus.
And I'm Ted.
And for those that are just getting into this is a podcast where I, a James Bond fan, show a newbie like Ted the James Bond films. This is 23rd out of the official ones. Obviously, it's more than that because we went through Never Say Never Again and the two fucking travesties that are the previous iterations of Casino Royale, especially 67. We are not reviewing those two Casino Royales ever again if we decide to, try to do this when the new Bond film comes out, or we'll just throw the new Bond film in within the rankings just off of memory, depending on how shot our memories are when that comes out. But yeah, today we are reviewing Skyfall, and this is the third film to star Daniel Craig, and the last film where Judi Dench, not the last film that Judi Dench plays M, but the last time that we see her in the M role, not from like a flashback or a recording that was made beforehand. We will talk about this probably when we get into the film on what kind of happens with her character. This was directed by Sam Mendes, who directed the 1994 film version of Oliver, also the 1993 version of Cabaret. Also directed a stage musical version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and also directed Jarhead, and his directorial debut was American Beauty. Wow, I would have never got that from watching this movie. But anyway, budget, again, a ranged budget. I thought we were going to be done with ranged budgets, but 150 to 200 million, and a box office of $1.109 billion, making this the highest grossing Bond film of all time, including adjusted for inflation. So finally something beat Thunderball for adjusted for inflation.
And long enough.
Yeah. Not that Thunderball was bad, but hey, guess we'll go into casting. Obviously, Daniel Craig as James Bond, Judi Dench as M. The villain, Javier Bardem as Raul Silva, whose real name, Raul Silva is what he was called a different name before while he was an MI6 operative, Tiago Rodriguez, and then after leaving MI6. Becomes Raul Silva, the villain. Javier Bardem, he's definitely got this from No Country for Old Men. He plays the hitman in that. He's also the villain, and I think the latest Pirates of the Caribbean movie. If I remember right, he plays Salazar, or whatever the hell the guy's name is. He is also, as you can tell, I haven't seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies past on Stranger Tides. He's also the husband of actress Penelope Cruz, which shows you no matter how ugly you are, you can still find someone.
We made several comments about who this guy looked like. We originally said it was Nick Cage mixed with, who did Mike say it
Chris
was?
Kattan.
Yeah, with Chris Kattan, and then I said he looked like he had Nicolas Cage's forehead, but the rest of his face looked like an overweight, what's his name? The guy from Portlandia. Fred Armisen, thank you. I couldn't remember his name then or now, but he looks like fat Fred Armisen. I would say this Wikipedia
picture I see of him, he actually looks a little bit better in that, but truthfully, most roles that I see him in, he looks rather rough.
This one being no exception, of course.
We also have Ralph Fiennes as Gareth Mallory, which most people today would probably know him as Voldemort from the Harry Potter series.
Not that you'd necessarily recognize him, but that would be his notable role, yeah.
Right. He's in other notable roles. I think he's also in The English Patient. Yeah, he's one of the main roles in The English Patient, but I'm trying to think of pop culture nowadays. We're past Seinfeld making fun of how boring and long The English Patient is. So, next we also have who's making a return. Moneypenny is back in this movie, played by Naomi Harris, the first person of African descent to play Moneypenny, and people will know her as Selena from the zombie film 28 Days Later, and Tia Dalma from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
This a bunch,
who ends
huh?
up being who ends up being a sea goddess that we find out in the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie. So we got two people from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise in this.
God.
That's rather interesting. She will go on to play Moneypenny in Spectre and No Time to Die, so 2 more times. We also have Ben Whishaw as Q. Q comes back in this. And he's played the voice of Paddington Bear in the movie Paddington and Paddington 2. He's also in Cloud Atlas and plays like a few roles in that. He's probably best known as Q in these James Bond films, because that's the only thing recently I can see, unless you've seen The Personal History of David Copperfield, where he plays the villain Uriah Heep. That's what I have for that. Also, we have a well-known actor that has like a small part, Kincaid, the gamekeeper of the Skyfall estate Bond's family home. Albert Finney is probably best known today as Dr. Albert Hirsch in the Bourne series. But I know him as lawyer Ed Massey in the movie Aaron Brockovich. Skyfall is his last movie. He would retire after playing that, and then unfortunately passed away in, I believe, 2019. He is probably more well-known in a lot more British films, since he is British, and was due to be knighted, but turned it down since he didn't want to perpetuate snobbery. That was an exact quote.
I respect it.
And we also have Berenice Mallory as Severine, Silva's mistress, and one of like 3 choices of probably the closest thing to a Bond woman that we get in this movie. She's known for like this and a bunch of like French films and French TV. So including the French comedy film Happiness Never Comes Alone, alongside Sophie Marceau, who played Elektra in The World Is Not Enough. So that's about what we have for casting. For development of how this movie ended up getting made. Development started in 2009, but was suspended until 2010 because MGM had financial problems. So therefore, this ended up getting released in 2012. So a big gap between 2008, which is Quantum of Solace, to this one. So we have that. Mendes ended up actually getting signed to direct this shortly after Quantum of Solace, and he also worked with Daniel Craig in the movie Road to Perdition. And Sam Mendes will direct Spectre, which is the next Bond film. After this, and during filming, apparently, since Javier Bardem and Daniel Craig had birthdays one after another, Javier Bardem was born March 1st, with Daniel Craig being for March 2nd. They celebrated their birthday together on set, and they brought out a giant cake. And Javier Bardem was dressed up like a Bond girl inside the cake and came out and then did his best Marilyn Monroe impression.
Again, respectable.
So they had a lot of fun in this. Also, I like to add, since I've just remembered it right now, Albert Finney's character Kincaid was originally going to be played by Sean Connery, but they decided, like during production, that would be way too distracting to have Sean Connery in that role.
Yeah,
but there is a line that we kind of wish that it was Sean Connery in that role.
When Stallman said it as we were watching, it was kind of like, yeah, it probably would be distracting. Like, we don't need it. But there was one line that delivered like a Connery line. I was like, man, if they could have just like really cheaply substitute him out so it looked like his face for just a second, it would have been clutch, man. It would have been, both of us kind of did it at the same time. Just yeah.
Which we know that 150 to 250 million would have went to 300 million because 100 million would have went to Sean Connery. But anyway, that's what I got for background. We'll go into likes and dislikes. I don't know what should we go first. I have very few dislikes.
Honestly, I want to get to likes first because the real big thing with this one was cinematography.
Oh my god!
This was a very, very beautifully done film. Camera angles made sense, moved fluidly. Like everything felt like the camera was at the right place, the right time, the right distance. The whole thing. Lighting.
The lighting was gorgeous.
This is one of the best like well lit movies I think I've ever seen. Yeah, the lighting was fantastic, even in dark lit areas, or the scene in that skyscraper with all of the glass walls, like all of the neon signs and stuff. Like even then, with all of the bright colors and lights from awkward places, the lighting still looked fantastic through the whole movie.
And even during like the siege on Skyfall, when like the mansion blows up, like the lighting from like the fire and everything that you actually see like on later, while like Silva's pursuing M, Bond's pursuing Silva, you can still see the lighting as if the flames were like,
and it's realistic. It's a glow. Yeah, it was beautiful lighting. The sound design was really good, even if the sound balancing was not. Which compared to the rest of the way this movie was shot is pretty minor. And then the biggest part for me, as great as the lighting was, the set design was even better. Everything felt like they were in the exact right place. I'll again note that scene in the skyscraper where some of the design choices might have been interesting, but the locations for all of these things to occur was flawless. The ideas behind the actual production of this movie that genuinely could not have been better.
Yeah, I wonder if they definitely took inspiration, because I know the last film for the hotel thing that got blown up for explosion reasons, I have to say, I wonder if they took cues from Ken Adams' designs in the earlier Bond films like that one did. Because I know that, like we said before, like with Moonraker, like the set designs were like really good in that. Same with You Only Live Twice, even though those are at the bottom tier of our list, we definitely, remarked how good Ken Adams' set designs were. And I really wonder if with this film as well ends up having that inspiration, why they put so much detail into everything.
Yeah, another detail-oriented, like the characters I thought were flawless. I hate to go big picture again, but I really liked Q's character. It felt natural. It felt like
Q was amazing.
It felt like a bigger role than Llewellyn ever had, like as far as like contribution to the plot.
Right.
But it definitely fit the like smart but awkward kind of nature of the character. Like it was a flawless transition. Judi Dench played really well.
Daniel
Craig did a really good job. I even thought that Moneypenny, for her limited I don't want to say availability, but her limited appearances, I still thought hit a role really well.
I love how like Naomi Harris kind of has like the Lois Maxwell approach to the character, but also this movie kind of has the backstory of how like they kind of have that flirty type of thing. And I think it's funny how it all starts for her shooting him in the shoulder.
Yeah, it was everything Everything with the character sort of made sense. I especially want to talk about the villain in this movie. They did such a good job playing the major parts of the plot around his particular instabilities. They wrote him a character that was unstable, unhinged. They drafted a plot line around the fact that he was unhinged, and then made the story play in tune with the fact that he wasn't all there. It was a brilliant written character for that plot line.
How Javier Bardem didn't get nominated for anything with that performance is beyond me for Academy Awards wise. Hold on.
I don't think
I think this did win an Academy Award. Yeah, for Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, it was nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Original Score. It won for Best Original Song and Best Sound Editing.
Like I said, the editing was fine. It was the volume yo-yo that existed.
Best Sound Mixing was nominated, so therefore they met. So obviously the Academy is just like, we know this was nominated, but it's not winning.
Yeah, well,
yo-yoing.
No, I just I thought that the character fit really, really well in there. I don't know that the writing catered to him winning an Academy Award, which I'll get to a little bit in dislikes, but it's not a huge point. But the way that the character played into the plot and the plot played into who the character was created a bit of twist, a bit of mystery, and really flowed with how the character began, acted, and ended. It was really, really good. That character was incredible.
I really also like the fact that within this, actually, when we go into character things, I actually like Ralph Fiennes' character, Gareth Mallory, and his arc through the entire thing. You kind of see him as he's this pencil pusher, but when you find out he's really not. And then, spoiler alert, he becomes M at the end. And it's kind of really cool how they kind of go through that entire thing of bits and pieces of Bond and the Nui to become M, kind of build their relationship, and then when that relationship happens, and by the way, the ending with the set action, because MI6 blows up, and then the new MI6 is the set design of the old Bond films from the Connery and Roger Moore era, which I think is really, really brilliant and amazing. I really love.
Yeah, definitely created a sense of familiarity. It was I think it was a nice homage to previous Bonds. It was the first time that it felt like they weren't trying to be something different. They really blended themselves in, which was awesome.
That, and also the Aston Martin from Goldfinger, which somebody needs, because there's a scene where Judi Dench's M is bitching at Bond, and then Bond just flips open the thing to hit the ejector seat. She goes, "Hit the ejector seat, go ahead." And we all made a comment someone should edit the scene from Goldfinger when he ejects the scene and deepfake Judi Dench flying out and just go end a movie.
And it just plays the that theme from Curb Your Enthusiasm. The end credits are playing the Curb theme. That would have killed it, man. I need that.
The character work between Judi Dench's M and Daniel Craig is the best it's ever been between M and Bond, I think.
I thought the interactions between Bond and a lot of characters was the best it's been. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you kind of got backstory for Moneypenny before you knew she was Moneypenny. You got the backstory for M before the new M comes in. The play between Judi Dench and Daniel Craig, it really blends in a everything from the previous movie has flowed into where you're at now. It gives actual backstory for who the characters are instead of just, hey, we're throwing you in, you care about Connery, and these are the characters that are around.
And even with Judi Dench, since the whole plot is Silva's trying to get revenge on Judi Dench's M because he went past his orders and started hacking the Chinese, got captured, and was basically left to be tortured. So therefore, he feels disgruntled because he has feels like he has kind of a role of a son to Judi Dench's M being a motherly role, which we kind of compared beforehand, how she kind of has that with Daniel Craig's Bond. So it's kind of cool how you have kind of a pseudo-sibling rivalry.
Yeah, it's
done into this.
Definitely.
Fuck, now I forgot where I was going with, like, beforehand. I'll get back to it if I think about it.
All right. The last thing I've got on my list for likes is the growth of Daniel Craig's character specifically. Like,
definitely.
This one felt less tied into the last one. Like, it definitely had its building blocks, but it felt less reliant on the previous film, where the previous film I thought was really dependent on the one before it.
Right.
Seeing the way in which he's got resolve now, he's got compassion, care, and thoughtfulness after the recklessness of the last movie. Like, it's kind of like he learned his lessons. He got his, you know, his bearings about him because he achieved his goals and continued to develop, which I thought was neat.
With this, he honestly seems like he is finally James Bond. Even though they do, like in the previous other ones, it's like, okay, he's dealt with this. Now he can finally be James Bond. They kind of had that ending with the last couple ones. And they sort of have it with this, but within the most part of this movie, it's more so like he's kind of like the James Bond that you were very familiar with, sans like the extreme sexism in the early ones, but like, not that the womanizing isn't here, but like what we said with Casino Royale, it's more so flirting as opposed to like forcing.
Absolutely.
Which is probably why Daniel Craig's Bond has lasted as long as it did. I have to say, I also, again, to go with Javier Bardem, I love how fucking creepy he is in this movie. Like, he is super fucking creepy. And, there's even this one thing which, takes me back to, like, because my cousin Taylor, who has since passed, this is his favorite Bond film, and we both talked about, like, the interrogation scene where Silva's trying to, like, creep out Bond by kind of, like, coming on to him, and when Daniel Craig's just like, what makes you think this is my first time? Like, as in first time, like, being with a man and just, like, totally cool with it, and that really, like, set well with my cousin who was bisexual. And I also like the reaction with, like, Silva just going, oh, Mr. You know? It's kind of weird seeing, like, a man do that when you see, like, a woman do that, and it's kind of really cool and refreshing, like, how well they really adapt, like, Bond to, like, the modern era. Like, it's really interesting, like, the little things that they do with this film and also other previous films that they kind of do with, like, the Craig era. But it's more apparent, I'd say, in this that I really enjoy.
I'd agree.
But as I was saying before, which actually comes down to, like, modernizing, like, Bond, there isn't really a Bond woman in this. Like, you could say it's Severine, you know, Raul Silva's mistress, who gets dealt a bad hand through the, shall we say, the Daniel Craig Bond curse, where if he sleeps with a woman, she seems to die.
Yeah,
Although even though it's not necessarily implied whether, like, him and Moneypenny sleep together, she would be the first person to dodge that bullet.
Yeah, they broke quite a handful of tropes in this movie that are pretty standard for Bond films. I mean, there wasn't a clearly identified, like, love interest.
Yeah, because it could be Severine, it could be Moneypenny, but, like, as, like, main companion, it's M. So technically M's the Bond woman, but it's not a romantic thing. It's more of like a parental thing, it seems.
Yeah, they did a whole lot, like, I guess in you know, even to just compare, like, tropes between the previous two movies of Daniel Craig, like, there was a whole lot of going rogue, kicking ass, and not asking any questions, where even this one, they kind of broke those kinds of things too. This one, like, while it still felt like a Bond film, it definitely broke a lot of things that felt standard.
Yeah, and even some things that are standard, they kind of improve upon it. Like the Bond quips are, like, as best as they ever been, especially the arc that they have with, like, this bulldog figurine that he just absolutely just doesn't like. He sees the MS6 is blown up. He goes, "That's the thing that survives, is that thing." And then spoiler alert, Judi Dench's M does like succumb to her wounds after getting injured. So technically, I guess Raul Sylvia is the first Bond villain to succeed, even though like it's not him killing her; it's one of his subordinates that accidentally does, under direct orders that he's the one to do it. But
yeah, well, and we saw too with Javier Bardem, like he was very hands on about I want this kill instead of just throwing it away, ignoring it. He sends troops. He sends his henchmen in to clear the building even after it's blown up to ensure Bond is dead. Like there's a whole lot of like even things that previous Bond villains have just kind of been like, well, he has to be dead now. I can turn my back. Like he was very hands on. Even it even broke that trope. They did a whole lot of breaking the norm.
Yeah, and like that is a big thing, especially where he's just like he tells like because he's only has 2 henchmen left, but even after like the mansion blows up, he's just like, I was part of MI6 before. You make sure he's dead.
Yeah.
I'm glad that somebody broke that trope since like Kamal Khan, who tried to break that trope but never got the ability to break that trope. But God. This is why I should write down notes.
You should. You should. We can move on to dislikes and come back to it if you think of it.
Oh, the bulldog. And then at the end when he gets like, it's like, hey, M wanted you to have this, and it ends up being the bulldog. I love how like there's like those comedic moments that are throughout Bond films, but for some reason in this one, I think it's kind of like the first time since like well, I mean, there's some times where it hits and really well in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, but it doesn't really hit like this since Octopussy, with like the comedic elements that are thrown into like the Bond films. And also I think now it's time to go for dislikes, because I do have a couple and they're rather minor.
I've got one that's like mildly significant, but most of mine are pretty minor.
Minor, yeah, mine are just nitpicky bullshit things that I just wanted to point out.
I guess I'll save the bigger one for last. But the first thing that bothered me was it felt like there was an excessive level of showmanship. I guess this was particularly notable through the middle of the movie, but there were lots of things with flourish and being over the top that just kind of felt unnecessary.
Yeah, which part of me wonders if like because they did state like Mendez like kind of wanted to have like a wink to Christopher Nolan, who said that his favorite film was On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and there are scenes in this where you kind of look like, wow, this is very Dark Knight like, but there's also a few things where there's some excessiveness from like some of like the Batman movies that Christopher Nolan has that are a little bit way over the top. Where this one, it's kind of like they kind of want to do that, but one up it, especially like the scene with the subway crashing through. It's like they had it seem like, oh yeah, he totally planned that happening, and it's like
the scene with the subway was definitely large and showy, but the one that sticks out to me is the scene where the villain's mistress dies. It's a game of chicken and shoot the was it fruit off of her head? No, it was a shot of whiskey.
Shot glass.
It was a shot of whiskey, and it was shoot it off her head. Like if you get it off her head, you win. Like Bond is really struggling internally with, can I do it? Whatever. He shoots, misses above her head, whatever. The villain then just shoots her in the stomach. The whiskey glass falls because she's keeled over, and then, haha, I win. And then Bond just kind of flips over 3 henchmen and uses their guns against themselves, and like the whole, just like if you were going to be able to play that out, like the showmanship of watch me murder this woman before you do this is like there's just some showiness to it that was interesting.
Yeah, but I do get like why Bond wouldn't do anything beforehand, because like if he could take out the one person's gun, Silva still has that dueling pistol. So therefore, unfortunately, there wasn't really much you could do.
It made sense, and I'm not complaining about the content of that scene. Like I get why it happened that way, but it just felt flashy and showy and like I could do this whenever I damn well please, and it
my main gripe is the fact, and this is a suspense of disbelief thing. Him actually, even though I love the line, it's like this thing from Q Branch, a radio. You don't see any helicopters whatsoever, but as soon as he says that, the helicopters come in, as if you wouldn't have heard them coming in throughout that entire thing, you know?
Yeah, I like I
said, it's not this movie that just does things like that. The Marvel movies are guilty of that. A lot of action films are very guilty of that. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna reveal this big, huge thing that you would have noticed.
Yeah, it was
way longer than it did.
It was just to create flash and flare, and it stuck out to me in a lot of points. Like that was the most egregious one to me, but I did notice it through several points, especially through the middle of the movie. That kind of brings me to my next point. Was there was a weird imbalance. I've mentioned it in probably both of the past two movies that like Daniel Craig's Bond felt somewhat superhuman, that they gave him abilities that just put him above the average person. And this one, they really played on both that superhero aspect and also having like intense weaknesses. And there was just a weird dichotomy where certain moments he's superhuman and certain moments he's a cretin without any muscular ability whatsoever. And
the best example of that, and it kind of blends it both weirdly, is when he's holding on to that elevator. It's like, oh yeah, superhuman ability, and then near the end, it's like, oh shit, right, he's injured. Then he has to.
Right, that was exactly the moment I wrote this note, where he can jump and parkour onto the bottom of an elevator without being noticed. So it's an incredible feat of strength and stealth. And then he gets off the elevator and he's holding his shoulder because he's crippled. Like, how am I supposed to put any investment into that whatsoever? It was a weird imbalance that nothing quite lined up with whether he was superhuman or subhuman in a lot of points.
Yeah, I agree. That's a glaring issue with this film, although it's rather brief at times.
Yeah, the last thing I've got is I don't know how to phrase this where it makes sense, but I didn't think that the plot within the movie was strong at all. I thought that the backstory was really good, but it was more like a guide to the next action rather than a plot. They gave you a lot of information that like made a cool background, that gave you a lot of information that made it feel like a strong plot, but within the movie to just watch this as an isolated piece without having any connection to other characters or like the significance of Moneypenny, right? Like it was every action that happened in the movie was just the sensible next step and not a plot. It was a great story and it fit really well into what we know about Bond, but the plot within this movie to just create it as being isolated was kind of weak.
It is a bare bones plot. They did keep it very simple, as in like bad guy does bad things, Bond has to stop bad guy, and when that's basically the plot.
Right. If you take that and then you add extra elements to it, like I love Javier Bardem's character and like his motives to get back at M, right? Like that they give you a whole lot of background that makes it feel really fulfilling, but to just take the content of the movie, the plot was sort of dry.
Yeah, kind of like the opposite of Living Daylights, where that plot's convoluted as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, even the scene with the subway, right? Like that. I think that's a really good example where, like, the notable next step is to follow him through the subway. Then the notable next step is to realize he's going after M, realize his motives. Then it's go and save M. Like it was never like a, hey, we're gonna, like, when they get to M, then it's, let's take her out into the middle of the nowhere, we're gonna fight on our grounds and have a step ahead instead of him being a step ahead of us. It was a guide to the next action and never a thought out, developed plot. It sat interesting to look at it that way, and I don't think it detracts from the watchability of this movie. Like, I don't think if you're
absolutely
looking
not. The character background and development in this honestly balances that out, I believe.
Yeah,
it is a valid criticism.
The strength of the characters too helps it a lot. It didn't make this movie unwatchable. It didn't by any stretch of the imagination make it bad, and it still provided value even if it wasn't strong in plot by itself as being part of the series, but like to just take it as, hey, I'm watching this 2.5 hours and this is it. The plot in it, like within it, was not strong, like we've seen in several other recent movies.
Yeah, for me, I already showed my main dislike with it, with like the suspense of disbelief on like certain scenes. The other two that I have are just nitpicks. I like the song Skyfall, but the lyrics to the song are rather dumb. It's just like they kind of had an excuse just to add Skyfall into it.
Yeah.
Like, granted, like this isn't like a review of the music, but there are a couple times if I'm annoyed by like a Bond theme, I'm very vocal about it, and that's the biggest annoyance that I have with that. The other one is all thanks to Ted. I will say that some of the set design things are kind of iffy, especially like the racks in the interrogation scene. Like it like what was pointed out by our friend Mike Riot. If you I'm gonna plug the Moonraker episode. He was a guest in our Moonraker episode. He noticed, and I didn't notice this before, but all that is just wires plugged into empty rack mounts.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's a little bit out of focus. So if you're not really paying attention to that, you're gonna miss that, and especially if you're paying attention to the dialogue between Bond and Silva, like I was, like if it's real easy not to pay attention to that due to the gravitas of each characters, but it is a detail for the fact that they got everything else so well detailed, they skimped on that is kind of odd.
There were a couple like interesting design choices, I guess. The servers being one of them. Like if you're going to build that big, flashy, light-filled set and then not fill a server rack, I mean, like, I don't know why put the server racks there in the first place. I mentioned it as we were watching too, that like right towards the beginning, there was the choice to like, hey, this terrorist is going to bomb MI6 and I'm going to post the announcement on YouTube. Like it just, it just kind of like...
Yeah, after reading more, I guess they were trying to like basically base Silva a little bit off of like WikiLeaks and stuff, but here's the thing, WikiLeaks is its own site. They didn't post their stuff on YouTube.
Well, they did it again. If you remember, right before the subway scene starts in that whole chase sequence,
yep,
where they're trying to like break into the laptop, which ended up not having a whole lot of significance at all, despite how big of a deal they made of it. They also like, oh man, he hacked our system. How'd it happen? Oh, I guess we did plug this junky laptop into the entire central database of all things MI6.
Which at the same time, you know, you'd think that, as like we mentioned it while we were watching this, you'd think that there would be like, you know, different firewalls and securities to prevent that happening.
Or you plug it into a smaller system to hack it instead of here's the database of everything. Like, like some of the design choices to accelerate the plot, quote unquote, were I don't want to call them lazy. I just don't think they were as well thought out as like the characters were. And
right.
I think it stood out because of how strong the characters were written, that like you knew they had that ability, and then some of the designs were just kind of that really floundered next to the strength of the characters.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing I have, and this is all Ted to blame on this one. All right, Ted, why don't you explain Aston Martins if we haven't explained it before? I'm pretty sure we have, because I'm pretty sure I make the same complaint every time I see this happen.
I think we have, but Aston Martins are built one of one. They don't make replacement parts, and while some of them are like, they're not mass produced to the point where they're producing parts and then assembling them. They're producing one part for one car. It's individual. Every Aston Martin is one of one.
And every time they blow up an Aston Martin in these series now, I cry.
Every time.
Fucking cry.
He gets so upset every single time, and I almost hate that I shared that piece of information with him, because like it hurts him to know that how much of that budget went to a really expensive, beautiful car that cannot be repaired without completely manufacturing a new car.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that I like these movies because I really like Aston Martins. I love how they look. To me, it's like Bond needs to be in an Aston Martin DB5, but now when I see that, it's just like, well, that's a nice car, but it's gonna get destroyed.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to know I did that to him, and I feel terrible about it. But here we are.
It's cool. It doesn't distract from me like in the movie or any of these movies that I like. But that's literally what I have. I will also talk, since we did forget the line. All right, so there's a line, that we kind of wish that for once that Albert Finney playing Kincaid was actually Sean Connery. This is when Skyfall's getting stormed in. Kincaid shoots the dude with a shotgun and says, "Welcome to Scotland."
Yeah.
My main complaint, this will be dislikes, that it wasn't Sean Connery for that very moment, because seeing Sean Connery say "Welcome to Scotland" would have been fucking amazing.
You ever seen like the it was a big like 80s and 90s things especially in spoof movies where they would like very clearly replace out the double. Like it was one character and then there was somebody completely different looking, but they were like back to back, so you could clearly see his face before the stunt happened. I almost wish that level of comedy had been here, where it was like
Sean Connery.
Right, where they just like you saw Kincaid's face, there was an awkward fucking cut. It was Connery in the same outfit, just delivering that one line right back to the guy that played Kincaid, and then you float on with the movie. Like I genuinely would have appreciated that happening, as shitty as it would have looked in an otherwise beautiful film. That would have given me the will to live. Oh my god, that would have been fantastic.
Somebody deep fake it.
Yeah.
Please. But yeah, that's all I really got.
Yeah, I'm out of notes. I think that about wraps us up.
All right.
So
God, this might be a fucking quick thing. It's like I fucking love this movie.
Yeah,
I fucking love it, love it, love it, love it, love it.
I'm struggling with the ranking because while I very, very thoroughly enjoyed this film, I know it's going to be close to the top. I don't know that I can put it above several of these other films just because I had such a hole in the plot line. Like this, I feel like it's almost hard to rank this without seeing the rest of the movies to know what these backstories add later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tentatively put it at 5th, right below Thunderball. However, I'm going to leave it open. Because I like the way that they built these characters.
I'll put an asterisk there. Well, all right.
Next week when we do rankings and I see how the development of characters plays into the future movies as well,
because we got 2 more, and Spectre ties them all together.
I'm fully prepared to move that after seeing Spectre, if the things that I liked about this movie contribute to the future ones. If we were like, had we watched these out of order, like if we just kind of shotgunned them and watched in a completely random order, I think I could feel pretty confident at 4th with the movies that we've already seen. But I expect it to go up if Spectre really plays into the things they built on in this movie. So tentatively, I'm putting it at 5th below Thunderball.
Okay. So, here's the thing. Normally, when I ranked this last time, OHMSS was number 1, and I always had trouble seeing which one was better, Skyfall or Casino Royale, because both are really good, and to me, for as much as I really enjoyed this film, and I think it also has to do with the fact that it doesn't really drag, while Casino Royale does have that part where it does drag at the end. I'm going to put Skyfall at number 1. I honestly think this is Daniel Craig's best Bond film.
All right. I really enjoyed this movie. It was really well done, and I almost feel bad putting it where it is, but I can't get past the fact that like everything being as good as it was, they didn't give me a full plot.
Right. Valid criticism. That's why I'm not angry at you. That's the funny thing, is that sometimes when I see these rankings, I figure I'm going to get angry. But as long as it's not below The Man with the Golden Gun, then I actually would have gotten angry.
No, I wouldn't put it that low. I really thoroughly enjoyed watching this movie.
GoldenEye, number 10, Man with the... Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, you have it at Skyfall at 5th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore, Man with the Golden Gun would be 10. And GoldenEye's at the bottom half, you son of a bitch!
No, GoldenEye's top half. It's 11th out of 26.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, not bad. and Goldfinger is at 14, just below that middle line. I'm killing it. I'm killing it.
You finally did it.
I'm killing it. You finally
did it.
Took a couple of movies up near the top to push it down a little, but we got there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think otherwise that wraps us up for this one. We've got 2 more movies to go. I think we're going to do a wrap-up episode that's going to rank some of our favorite themes, our favorite villains, that kind of thing, as well as just reviewing our overall list, because the way we present it isn't necessarily easy to keep up with our rankings if you don't type in every single one like both of us are. So we'll give a recap on a follow-up episode at the end. I think by the time this comes out, we'll have been already done all of the movies, unless one of them manages to take us 2 sessions. But you can keep track in the Discord if those are coming up. We already know that if you're watching this, because you should be in the Discord.
Right.
To catch up with other things that we do, follow Stallman and I both on Twitch. Stallman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. As we've mentioned in the past few movies, we're also looking for additional series to do this with in the future. I don't know that it's going to be right back to back. I think we're taking a break because 28 weeks of James Bond is a shitload of time. But
then I need to get back to a streaming schedule. This thing's kind of preventing me from doing that because I'm too busy preparing for this.
But yeah, so if there's any other series or films that you'd like us to review, preferably series, things that are longer, we'll try and do those in some future seasons. Otherwise, I think that about wraps us up for this one.
Yep.
All right.
So see you guys later.
Have a good one.